Listen, I know that on Wednesdays, you are used to one thing and one thing only, and that is going behind enemy lines. This is when I would normally have a guest from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers side of things. However, that didn't happen this week. I couldn't get a single person to come on from that fan base, which tells me they're probably chicken shit that they're going to lose this game. However, I will say this. It's been a long time since we've done a call-in show, and I think this is the perfect week for it. This week, out of any other week, probably has the most drama that we've had all season, probably the most talking points that we've had all season, and coming off the biggest win that the 49ers have had all season, which tells me you have a lot of things to say. You have a lot of things to talk about, and I want to give you that opportunity. So the link is pinned to the top of the chat. Get ready to call in right after this intro. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And like I said, it is a call-in show. And, Coach, guess what? The guy in front of you fell out, which means your number one position. And I'm going to get to you in just a second. I'm going to say what's up to the chat. What's up, everybody? We got Mariah. We got Steven. We got Wave. We got Raul, Hector, Manny, Tanya. Yeah, hell yeah. All right, let's get into this thing. Actually, Coach, I'm going to wait. I got Hadiz back. He fell out. He's back in. I'm going to go to him. All right, let's see. What up, Hadiz? How you doing, man? Hadiz. All right, listen. Hadiz looks like he's on the move. He's probably trying to get ready. So, Coach, we're coming to you.
All right.
What up, Coach?
What's going on, Jess? How you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic, man. How you been?
I've been pretty good, man. Just working really hard. I just came back from the gym, so I'm tired as hell.
Yeah, us old guys too, man. Once we work out, it's like we are down for the
Bro,
count.
yo, 5 minutes and it's over. Like you gotta like keep moving.
I feel
But
it. I feel it.
what also has me road weary is just this season. I've never been a part of a season that has had this many twists and turns at the quarterback position. Uh it has been a roller coaster, has it not?
Oh, complete roller coaster, and especially for a team that's competitive and has Super
Mhm.
Bowl aspirations. No, I don't think I've ever seen anything like it.
And to still have them at like
Yeah, yeah.
um I it goes without saying that I'm in the tank for Kyle Shanahan. I'm a big stan, but I just think that he's doing a really good job. This is going to stretch him. I think this is either going to be his worst coaching performance of the season or his best.
Okay.
Uh,
And you're talking
uh,
this game specifically coming up,
no, I'm talking about this season.
the season. Okay, all right, fair enough.
Yeah, I'm talking about just a 10,000 foot view of
Okay.
what he's done for the entire season. Uh, for us to have Brock and Kyle, what he says at the podium is pretty much whatever. But I really pay attention to what the players say. We all know that this team pretty much goes as Fred Warner goes emotionally. And I was very encouraged by Fred Warner's basically like stumping of Brock Purdy. Like he stumped for him, like, yo, he's our guy. Like
Yeah,
there was no wavering whatsoever. I know you probably caught the TJ Hushmanzada and Orlando Scandrick podcast
I
with
do.
Brandon Ayuk,
Yeah,
and Brandon Ayuk all but doubled down. Like, listen, he's our guy. And as a matter of fact, he even mentioned in that interview, right before he took this interview, he ran into Brock. And
mm-hmm.
Brock admitted to him that, hey, man, like, I missed you a lot during that game. And I'm coming for you. Like, don't lose faith in me. I'm going to get you the
I
ball.
love that. I love that.
Yeah. I'm just, we are who we are, man. Like we all grew up with football. I'm football through and through. And there's something to be said about those God-fearing ball players who just love their Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. They're bold about it. They know that like their life is just real simple, and they know who they are. I think that's what we have in Brock Purdy as a person, as a player. I saw one of his interviews in the locker room, and I guess they were asking him like, what does he do on like his time off? And he was like, I give myself about an hour to call family and kind of catch up with people, but I maybe like I just started Game of Thrones. You know what I'm saying? Like he's like,
Yeah.
I don't play video games. They're like, do you play Call of Duty? Anything? They're like, and he's like, I don't got nothing for you. I don't.
He's like an
So
Amish
I
quarterback.
yeah. So I mean, for the emotional stuff, I don't feel like we have the typical rookie. This is a guy who turned down Alabama in 2018 when Alabama was at their hottest.
Yep.
Um, and he told Alabama, no, thank you. And not only
Because
did he
Iowa
tell
State felt
Alabama,
right.
yes, because Iowa State felt right. And not only did it feel right, but he started
Hmm.
right away and he fought for that job. I just, I'm not, I don't, if it was a bad guy, I'd feel worried about the season, but I just don't. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. Not with what we have on defense, not with what we have surrounding him, not with, I mean, this is what we pay for. Like, let's look at the identity of our team. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but the identity of our team is we're a physical team that runs the ball, right? And the money of our team and I guess what you say, the heavy lifting of what we do to get our team together is on our defense,
Yeah.
right? Our
Yeah.
first
Of
round
course.
draft picks,
Of course.
our money, our acquisitions are on our defense, and rightfully so. They're the number one defense in the league. And honestly speaking, they've actually gotten better like every year. They've gotten better. And our offense is we lean on the genius of Kyle Shanahan and we piece together offenses. I mean, we have guys, but for the most part, we're trying to lean on what he puts together. And I don't feel like I don't feel like that identity has changed whatsoever with Brock Purdy at quarterback.
I think that's fair. Before you get out of here, let's answer it this way. So I want to know where your head's really at. I want to
Okay.
get some bold predictions here. So with Jimmy Garoppolo, did you think that this team could win a Super Bowl this year?
No.
Okay. So with
Yeah.
Brock Purdy, do you think this team can win a Super Bowl this year?
With Brock Purdy, I think. All right, so let me say this: I didn't think we could win the Super Bowl with Jimmy, but I definitely thought we can get to the playoffs, right? And if
Yep.
we got to the playoffs, if we get to the tournament, anything is possible. And
Hmm.
nobody wants to see us in the playoffs.
No,
Nobody,
definitely not. No.
nobody wants to see us in the playoffs. So that's how I always felt about like, all right, let's just get to the tourney. If we can get in the playoffs, then we got a shot. Now I feel like getting to the playoffs will be an accomplishment for this team, and I'm going to be checking the temperature of how we get in the playoffs.
Okay,
If we
that's fair.
if we get in the playoffs by the skin of our teeth, I'm not going to feel too good about our shots moving forward. But if we get in the playoffs and we're healthy and we're feeling good, I'm gonna be talking my shit. I'm sorry. I'm gonna be like, look, it's on. It's on. You know,
Hey, listen, that's not going to stop, especially when I get into these spats with other fan bases. I'm still going to rep like I expect to win every game in the playoffs, even if I don't fully believe it. Even if I come on the show and pick against the 49ers, I'm not showing weakness to another fan base. It's not going to happen. So I'm with
before
you,
I
man.
go,
Yeah.
I just want the comment that I said in the last live. Like
Mhm.
the one thing, if we talk about all of the things that Brock Purdy doesn't do and does do versus Jimmy, we could play action is back in our offense,
For
and
sure.
that is a gigantic weapon.
I
It
agree.
is an equalizer. It is what keeps us on pace, and it's something that Kyle Shanahan utilizes a lot. And quite frankly, Jimmy doesn't like to do it. He does not like to turn his back to the defense. And I'm telling you, with the kid, I'm not worried about us coming out. Brock Purdy has enough athleticism to turn his back to the defense.
Yeah. He
I'm not
does.
worried
He
about
can
that.
protect himself. And I'll also say this. It's funny because they asked Kyle, what was a harder transition from Trey to Jimmy or Jimmy to Purdy? And naturally, the harder transition is going from Trey to Jimmy.
Trey
They're
to
complete
Jimmy. Yeah.
opposites. However, I think the transition from Purdy back to Trey, and I'm not saying this year, so don't, come
Yeah.
on,
Yeah.
chat,
Yeah.
chill out. But that transition is actually a lot smoother than it was from Jimmy to Trey Lance because you've got a mobile quarterback who likes to play under center and can turn his back to the defense. They both like to do that. Now, what happens when they drop back? Where they're looking to throw the ball, that's where things change. But overall, as far as what they want to do and how they want to run an offense, I think is very similar.
We want to stay ahead of the sticks, Jesse.
Yep.
That's like Kyle Shanahan. I'm gonna tell you right now. It may look good on third down. Kyle Shanahan is not interested in third downs.
Yeah.
He does not want to. So like with play action, with what we're gonna do, like I'm encouraged. I want to see what he's gonna come up with.
I'm
You know?
excited. To me, and it's again, it's gonna sound like I'm hating on Jimmy. What I don't care. Listen,
Yeah.
I am more excited to watch Brock Purdy play football than I was Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm just gonna say it.
Because
I
the
don't know
book
what
is
the
already
result's gonna be.
out.
I don't know what the result's going to be. So I'm
Yeah,
excited
that's
for it.
and I don't think that's hating, Jesse. I think that that's just a human reaction to what we've been seeing for 6 years.
Mhm.
We have seen the offense. We know what it is, and for all of the requisite skills that Jimmy has, the book on Jimmy is that he cannot protect himself on the football field. All right, we could talk about the go down. You know what I mean? Like even when he got hurt, like Jimmy, go down or throw the ball
Yeah,
away.
he could have. He could have avoided that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
hear you, Coach. All right, Coach. I got people
All
building
right.
up,
Thanks,
man. I'm gonna
Jesse.
let you go.
Thank you,
All right,
man.
man. It was good talking
All
with you.
right.
All right, here's the order, just so everybody knows. I like to stay respectful with the order because I do 5-minute limits here, which I'm gonna have to hold people to. But I also don't want to make people wait a long time if they can't wait. So here's the order. We're going Hadiz, Polo, Viet, Gammon, and Zach. That is the order. So if you can't wait, I totally understand. I want to be respectful of your time as it is 5-minute calls at a time. So that being said, let me get through the chat real quick. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Sky, what's up, Sky? Says, let's go Ducks. I know, man. The way that season ended was real rough for us. We got a pretty good third string quarterback. Yeah, we do. In fact, we got a hell of a future backup quarterback at the very least. And I am excited for that. I think Brock Purdy I think he's a good player. And I think he's a long-term answer for backup quarterback. And that's something that we should be excited about because as we saw this year, backup quarterback is very important to this team specifically. And I feel comfortable with Brock Purdy playing quarterback position. So, Hadiz, we're going to bring you in. What's up, man? You ready now?
Yeah, I'm ready. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
All right. Well, it's a long time no see. Haven't been on here for a minute, but how are you,
It
man?
has been a minute.
But I like to start off by saying the season has been a roller coaster, hell of a season so far. But I want to point out a couple topics, just two of them, real quick. The first topic I like to point out is the speedster, Danny Gray. It looks like he hasn't been involved in the offense recently because Jimmy's limitations, of course. Now, of course, we're getting Brock Purdy in the offense. And do you see Danny Gray like getting chinned in the offense a little bit, getting a little piece of that pie?
Man, I don't know. I will say this, and I don't know how many people caught it because it was up and then it was down real quick. He threw out a post after the game that was, I didn't think it was cryptic. Maybe he caught a lot of flack. It seemed to me like he was just showing love to his Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. But the wording was almost like something along the lines of like, oh, I thank him for what's to come or something like that.
Right.
And it was after Jimmy Garoppolo got injured, knowing, and if you've paid attention to this saga a little bit, he got on Jimmy Garoppolo pretty tough, yelled at him multiple times that first game that they played together because he was open, which I found interesting for a rookie to do that to a veteran quarterback, and I thought was a bad idea. However, what we've seen since then is he's really almost gotten no burn. And so, did that tweet mean a little something different? Why did you take the tweet down? So maybe that was some insight as to, hey, I'm happy that the quarterback change is here because I might actually be able to play now. I don't know. And I don't want to say that's what he meant, but it does seem a little weird that he removed that tweet very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, his route running is awful when you're looking at the 22. It's not as good as it once was. Like, compare him to week 2 to now, you can see he's getting a little frustrated that he's not going to get the ball. And when he does have those limited reps and play time, you know the ball's not getting to him. But now with Brock Purdy, you can see if the Niners want to take a shot downfield with a play action pass because remember, Danny Gray is fast. That's the one thing that was good coming from college is he is fast and he can burn you if you're not aware of how fast he is. I can see the Niners taking a deep shot, but knowing Kyle, I really don't trust that. But that's I just wanted to know where you're at with Danny Gray because he was picked at number 3, and I really thought a lot of him.
I mean, I like Danny Gray to the point that I did mock him, like I think round 4, an awful lot to the 49ers. I'm not mad at the pick, but I can see why he's not playing. And it's because he's not a good blocker. People talk about his route running. I agree. I don't think it's the best, but you've got to be able to block and you've got to want to block in this offense. He's not a good blocker. He cannot block to save his life. And if you get to a point, we talk about the Trent tipping plays and all those other things, but if it gets to a point where Danny Gray is only coming in on deep shots, everybody knows what's coming. There's no point in doing it. The kid can't block. He can't be in on running downs. And I think that's where it's been. And I think that he can be probably fine as long as he's a hard worker. I think having a guy like Brandon Ayuk is probably the best thing for him. I think Brandon Ayuk's turned into a leader. Brandon Ayuk was in the doghouse himself. And I just think that he can be great for Danny Gray long term if Danny Gray's willing to listen. I don't know who he is as a person. I don't know, what his motives are, but if he's a good kid and he wants to be good in this league, I think Brandon Ayuk is a perfect mentor for him.
My final topic, I wanted to talk about someone who's really underrated in the secondary of the defense after Emmanuel Mosley's injury, Diamador Lenore. This is a game where he would be tested against 2 great wide receivers at Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. And I'm going to pull up the stats for a second.
Oh, no. Oh, no, I lost him. These lost him, and he was getting into something good too, man. I wanted to hear what those stats were. All right, Sky topping back in. He says, if Purdy is very solid, anyway, we would try and trade Lance next season. Keep Jimmy G as the backup. I don't know. Purdy seems legit, pretty exciting. Yeah, I think there's a lot of excitement around Purdy. I don't see any scenario where Trey Lance gets traded. Like even let's say worst case scenario, he's the second quarterback. They really love Purdy. Purdy comes out and balls and they win a Super Bowl and whatever. Why? I mean, Trey Lance is cheap. You traded a whole bunch for him. If you do trade him for pennies to the dollar and he balls out, how bad does that look? I mean, that would be the worst case scenario. So no, I don't see a scenario that they trade Lance unless Lance requests a trade. Maybe that's the scenario. We'll see. We'll see how things play out. But let's not get ahead of ourselves here. I throw out a stat that really, really pissed people off on Twitter. But the first 46 throws of their career, when Trey Lance wasn't playing good football, everybody says he didn't look good against Seattle. He didn't look good against Arizona. Well, he threw for more yards than Brock Purdy has in his first 46 attempts. Threw for more touchdowns and less interceptions. So, and that's not even including the rushing. So let's just pump the brakes real quick on the whole Purdy thing. I'm excited too. Again, I like Brock Purdy, but I've always thought of him as a backup option. I'm not ready to even go down that path yet. This is one game. That's it. So, all right. We're going to bring in Polo. Hopefully he's ready. I'm going to be going on his show tomorrow. Chris Polo also can do a great Rohan impression. See if he's ready. What's up, Polo?
What's going on, old man? How you doing?
Hey, there he is.
Well, I think for the last goal points I just made, I also don't think Danny Gray would be much of a factor because Brock Purdy has a weaker arm than Jimmy G, first of all. And I know some people are trying to say that it's the same or better, and it's just not true. At camp, people knew that the biggest issue with him was not accuracy; it was really his velocity and his arm strength.
Yeah.
But also, just going through the rest of the season, when Jimmy went down at first, I was like, okay, I think the season's done. But then the game progressed, and I started really think about it after the wins settled in, and we had spaces, and we started talking about, well, the Broncos were able to win a Super Bowl with really bad QB play, pretty much.
Yeah.
And it was just elite defense. So if the Niners are able to stay healthy and the defense can kind of put together a run, something like that, then I do see it as a possibility. My thing is, because earlier you asked, did people believe that the team could win a Super Bowl with Jimmy? I thought they could this year because the defense was so good, and adding McCaffrey was just the perfect match for him.
Yeah.
The thing is, for me, it just depended on who do they end up playing in the Super Bowl if they made it. If they were playing the Bengals again, the Bengals somehow make it again, then I could see it. But if they're playing the Chiefs against someone like Patrick Mahomes, or if they're playing the Bills before they had their injuries and Josh Allen, I probably would have picked against the Niners. But I thought they had a chance. Now with Purdy, the reason I'm not going to sit here and say I don't think they can still make it as far as they would have with Jimmy this year is because what Jimmy has done in the playoffs. I do think, obviously, Jimmy's a better QB than Purdy. I'm not going to come up here and say I think Purdy's better. I do think he can do a few things that Jimmy can't, like be mobile and kind of extend plays, but he does hold on the ball longer because he's a rookie. His arm's weaker, as I said earlier. But if you look at Jimmy in the playoffs, what has he done in the playoff wins that we have? You had the Minnesota game, he didn't do anything.
He has one touchdown and 4 interceptions in the 4 wins they have.
Yeah, and he had 8 pass attempts against the Packers. And then last year, he didn't even throw a touchdown in the wins, and he just threw a pick in both games. And they were still able to pull those off against really good, high-powered offenses, too. So can Brock Purdy do worse than a 2 to 3 touchdown to interception ratio and historically bad quarterback ratings in the fourth quarter of a playoff game? Because if that's the bar that gives you a possibility of making it to a Super Bowl, I don't think it's that far-fetched. Because it's not like we're asking him to go out there and ball out and go toe-to-toe with an elite quarterback in a shootout. We're asking him to just not be worse than Jimmy, to also just, have a 1-to-1 touchdown interception ratio is an improvement. Like that's the difference. So I do think it's still possible. Is it likely they win it? Probably not, especially if they ended up facing Mahomes in the Super Bowl, which I think might happen with the Von Miller news coming out. But in the NFC, it's just so wide open. I don't see like another team in the NFC other than the Eagles and Cowboys that I really see beating the Niners. And I do still feel like the Niners can beat the Eagles. I do still feel like they can do that. Dallas, to me, is the tougher matchup, especially if they end up getting Odell. That defensive line's crazy good. And Micah Parsons against Mike McGlinchey just kind of freaks me out. But I do still feel like, it is the Cowboys. They haven't proven that they can win with these good teams when it seems like every year's their year. So I feel like the Niners could still figure that out. It's just such a wide open NFC. It's just after that, I still have my questions. But I do think that it's really similar still to when Jimmy was playing.
Yeah, I think it's very similar as well. I do think Purdy might have a better deep ball than Jimmy, even though his arm is weaker. His arm is stronger. It is, to me, it's not stronger, but I also don't measure strength of an arm based off of how far you can throw. I measure it off the power throws.
Yep.
Far hash to outside the numbers, 10 to 15 yards down the field. I want to see those throws. Or the throw over the middle he had to Debo this last week that just floated on him. Should have been a PI, and they gave him the PI call the next play. That's one of those power throws where it's like 35 yards on a rope directly in front of you. Can you get it there? And that thing floated like a butterfly. By the way, this is nothing new. We knew this, or anybody that watched Purdy for any amount of time, I knew this in 2020. And so, yeah, he's a good player. He throws with anticipation. He's got good footwork. He's got a very quick release. He's mobile. There's a lot of things I like about Purdy, but that arm is a minus arm. It's not even a neutral arm. It is a minus arm. And I think the velocity shows that. He threw 51 miles per hour at the NFL Combine. Jimmy Garoppolo threw 56. Now, there might be some argument as to maybe Jimmy's arm has regressed, but 5 miles per hour, I don't know if it's regressed that much. I think Jimmy can make the power throws a little bit better than Purdy, but that doesn't mean that Purdy can't be effective. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, man, I don't know. We'll see. I think this team can beat anybody. It's hard for me to believe that Brock Purdy is going to be the first rookie to ever get it done. I think that's a tough order for anybody.
This game and also the rest of the year, like the Tampa Bay has such a good defense, and now they have a full week to prepare for how are we going to expose Brock Purdy, and they do have pretty much a full game of tape that they can go look at now from this past game and point some things out. And as that just keeps progressing, obviously teams are going to start to find his tendencies and see how the Niners want to operate this offense with him. They'll be able to start to figure it out more. So that Dolphins defense was like 22nd against the pass going into that game. So it's not like we were playing an elite secondary. So seeing how he plays against Tampa Bay with a full week of them to prepare for him will be it's going to tell us way more than that Dolphins game.
I agree with that. I'll say this. One thing that goes in the 49ers' favor of possibly making a Super Bowl is the two toughest matchups, in my opinion. It sounds like you might be on the same wavelength. Would be Philly and would be Dallas. Those teams are probably going to play each other at some point, which means they're only going to have to go through one of them. And if it's Dallas, that would be a home game. So that, the path is shaping up to where it could be an easier one for the 49ers, which is nice that we see that at the very least. So,
yep, I agree.
All right, brother. I'll see you tomorrow night on your channel.
I'll see you.
All right, later. All right, let me get to these super chats real quick. Then we'll get to Viet. Ern says, Jesse, does it seem like the team has hyped Purdy more than they ever did Lance? If so, is that concerning? No, I mean, I think they just know the situation. Like, they just came off of a huge win against a really good offensive football team. That was a test for them. There is no other option at this point. You got to get fully behind them. No, I don't take it that way at all. I'm not going to read too far into that. I think emotion, I think circumstance, I think there's a lot of things that go into it. And by the way, Purdy is a good guy. He's a good guy. He's a leader. And he's a good football player too. So no, I don't look into that. Sky says, I am a fan of Lance. So this is going back to his last comment. When compared to Purdy, the difference is what we gave up for Lance. Also, Kyle can't develop QBs. I don't care, just win. I agree with you, just win. That whole what we gave up, though, that crap goes out the window once people start saying that Purdy's better than Lance. Like, he's either better or he's not. I don't care what was given up. They're now both on the team. They didn't choose where they were drafted. Maybe Purdy was drafted too low. Maybe Lance was drafted too high. Time will give us that answer. The question is when they're on the team, you got people saying that after that start, that Lance should be on his way out and Purdy's the long-term answer. I don't care where they were drafted. So if I then pull up stats and say, okay, I know the feeling around here is that Purdy looked super comfortable and Lance didn't look so hot, but when the numbers say otherwise, now everybody and I'm not saying you, Sky, by the way, I'm not saying you. I know where you're at. But the conversation is now like, well, he should play better. It's like, well, no. I thought he just didn't play better. So did he not play better? Or is it the draft picks? Like, where are we at? Like, let's stick to a position. So that's where I'm at with it. Sky, again, this is not directed at you. These are just conversations I've been having, and I'm going to play it out here a little bit. All right, Viet, we're bringing you on. It's been a while since I've talked to you, man. So we're going to go Viet, Gammon, and then Zach. If anybody wants to call in, anybody else wants to call in, the link is pinned to the top of the chat. Now's your opportunity. I only have 3 waiting. That's usually pretty rare. I've got 7 to 8 normally. So if you want to get in, now would probably be the best time to do so. What's up, Viet? How are you?
Hello, man. How you been?
I've been good, man. How you been?
I'm been good. I've been busy with work and all that.
Yeah.
But
all right.
Glad you're doing an open mic show again. Perfect timing.
It's been a long time, and it's just hard. Like, once I get in the season, I get in the groove of the shows that I'm doing. But this is the perfect week for it. It really is.
Yeah. Dude, like, this season's been like Game of Thrones. I don't know if you watch Game of Thrones, but it's like, seems like when you know what a narrative is going to turn a certain way, something bad happens, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Anyways, or even to address someone just said about the draft, like, it doesn't really matter where people get drafted. They can either play or they can't play.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Tony Romo went undrafted. Like drafting is like buying that big stack of trading cards when you're a little kid and just running through it and hoping you get like a good one, a good Michael Jordan one in the end. I mean, you spend all that money and you burn through all that stuff, but you got to get that diamond in the rough somewhere.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes you do. Sometimes you find those diamonds in the rough. Absolutely.
We seem to find one every year in the late rounds.
Yeah.
And anyways,
I don't know if you caught the Hufanga interview with Sherman, but
no.
I thought that gave some really good insight as to the way that Kyle Shanahan thinks. He said that Kyle treats everybody like a first-round pick. He expects everybody to play like they're a first-round pick. He does not care if you were drafted, undrafted, fifth round, first round. Everybody is held to the same standard, and everybody is expected to play like a first-round pick. And if not, you're not going to be on this team for long. And that's what Hufanga said. I found that actually pretty interesting.
Right, and I don't think he's going to draft him if he doesn't believe that they have that in them.
Right.
Like Purdy is playing like the number one pick in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Not the last pick, right?
Yeah.
And I've been hearing a lot of people saying, Debo or Kittle is not worth all the money because they're not getting the stats. But like stats don't make you a great player. What makes you a great player is that the command that you draw on the defense. Are you influencing the defense so the other guys can get open? I don't care how many catches Debo gets a game. If he influences the way the defense plays and we win because of that, he's worth everything he's paid for.
Yeah, I agree with that to a certain extent. My only issue with Debo is all of a sudden it started showing up pretty regularly that he was getting kind of lazy in his routes. Like if he knew the ball wasn't coming his way, he was just really lackadaisical. Now, I felt like that started to change a little bit the last couple of weeks, which is good to see. But if you're getting paid that much, man, if you're not getting the ball and you're going to be a decoy, you better be the best decoy on that play. You've got to give effort every single time.
It could be that he's trying to conserve himself because he plays pretty ferociously. So I can see where he's coming from. Like, I'm not a professional athlete, so I'm not going to judge anyone for what they do. The other thing is, what you think of Purdy, man? Like, I feel like he can get better. Are there things that you see him like assuming? And I'm just going to take a wild stab at this. Assuming he turns out to be living up to the potential that we think he is, he's not going to be amazing. I'm not like maybe he can be as good as Jimmy. I feel like we can get to a Super Bowl because one, we got the book's not out on him. Nobody knows who he is, and you notice Shanahan is really aggressive. Was really aggressive with him last game, and we've never seen that before. So maybe it's sparked something in. I've never thought it was, it was Jimmy's fault that we couldn't get to a Super Bowl. I always thought it was just Kyle. We were in the Super Bowl and Kyle was really conservative. Shanahan was really conservative, and I felt like our conservativeness gave up that Super Bowl.
You know what's interesting about Kyle is he did this a little bit with Trey too. Remember Trey's first start on the road against a 5-0 Arizona Cardinals team or 4-0 or whatever they were. Hottest team in the NFL, no George Kittle. And they went for it like every fourth down.
Every play.
Like, why? What? And I'm not saying it's bad. Like, I don't necessarily agree or disagree, but why with backups do you tend to do this? But with Jimmy, you were unwilling to do so. I don't know if that's a Jimmy indictment. I don't know if that's a Kyle indictment. I really don't know what to make of it. But I do notice that when he gets these backup quarterbacks in, it's almost like he says, hey, I got nothing to lose. I'm going to send a coach very free here. Versus with Jimmy, there's an expectation. And so now I've got to just do everything perfectly, and I'm kind of uptight. I don't know. I don't understand it personally.
I feel like it's kind of like us. We have an anxiety when Jimmy is in there, and I think Kyle has that anxiety too, and it just rubs off. It just comes off in the way he coaches. And like when these news guys come in, like I agree with you. Like I'm really more excited to watch Brock Purdy play because it's something new, and I think Kyle has that sort of same mentality.
Yeah. I agree, and I'm excited to watch Brock Purdy play because it is something new, and I'm so with you on that. I feel like I knew how the Jimmy story was going to end, and it was going to end one of two ways: with an injury, which it seems like that's happened, or making it to an NFC Championship probably and falling short. Like that's the way that I looked at it. So for me, now we've at least got something different. We'll see. There's excitement. I think I don't know if I've seen the fan base this excited for a long time. Like, seems like the fan base is fully behind Brock. They know there's no other options, and so they're just excited to see what the kid can do. I think it's a fun time. It's a fun time to be a 49er fan. I think there is certainly some excitement. My concern is this is when that inevitable egg is laid, and hopefully it's not this week, but if it happens sooner than later, I'm curious to see what happens with that excitement. Like, let's say he comes out this week and throws 2 picks and 1 touchdown and 185 yards. Now, how excited is everybody? Like, that would be my concern.
As long as we continue to win, I think that excitement will still be there.
Yeah.
But whether he plays good or not, as soon as he starts throwing, a bad game and we lose because of that, then there'll be hell to pay.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. All right, brother. You have a good one. It was good talking to you, man.
Appreciate you, man. I'm glad to see you again.
Absolutely. Later. All right, let me get to this super chat. Then we're going to get to Gammon. So here's the order. We got Gammon, we got Zach, we got Ferris, we got Frank Tom Ocean. Actually, real quick, I'm going to go to Hadiz because he's back in here and he had that stat he was going to spit real quick and then he'll be done. And then we got Dabuda. So let me bring in Hadiz real quick, see if he can get off that stat. What's up, Hadiz?
How's it going, Jesse? I'm sorry for the cutout. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. Go ahead, man.
All right. For real, I'm going to keep it real quick. I was going to mention how Diamond Lenore was shutting down Hill and Waddle.
Mm-hmm.
Against Hill, he was targeted 4 times. He allowed 1 catch for 19 yards, as well as an interception. He was locking down Hill. And against River Craycraft and Jalen Waddle, it was disturbing. Like, they had to get Hill in motion to beat Diamondor Lenore, and that's how he allowed that 1 catch. That's all I just wanted to mention because I was really impressed by his coverage this Sunday.
You know what's funny is last week's film session for the members was on Diamondor Lenore, and I think it was perfect timing because Diamondor Lenore played a really good game, and I think people look at Diamondor Lenore like he's some weak link on this defense, and I didn't see that at all. So this would have been the Saints game that I reviewed. I didn't see that at all. I think he's a good football player. I don't think he's quite on Mosley's level, but I think he's good and he definitely can carry things. I don't think he's a weak link at all. There's a lot of really good players, and so he may not be on their level, but I don't think he's a problem going forward. We'll see. I mean, maybe he gets exposed at some point, but I think Diamondor Lenore is a good player.
But comparing him last year to this year, I just like to point out that he's taking steps up and he is improving. And I'm impressed by him, and I want to see him just guard like Mike Evans or Chris Godwin this Sunday. I was going to mention that should be an underrated matchup to look at.
Yeah, but, absolutely. All right, you have a good one, all right?
You as well. Thanks for having me back on.
All right, later. 49ers Daddy says, Jesse, thoughts on Kyle confirming a different offense for Trey? It sucks, and Kyle needs to stick with his normal offense. I just feel like that's a really weird thing to say for Kyle. And it was a different offense. But he's playing Trey Lance like he's Justin Fields. Like, if that was the offense he wanted to run, then draft Justin Fields. But you drafted Trey Lance because he played under center, because he called his own audibles, because he called out his own protections. Like, that's why you were supposed to draft him. And then you did none of those things. I felt like the way that he ran the offense with Purdy under center, play action, turning his back, a lot of rollouts, those types of things, that's what I expected Trey Lance to play like. That's not at all what we got. And then I expected, okay, once you get inside the 5 or you got a 3rd and short or a 4th and short, that's when you could see some of the handoffs and whatnot and the keepers for Trey Lance. But that's just not how it went at all. And so what I saw with the offense of Brock Purdy, that's what I expected of Trey Lance. So we'll see. I don't know. I don't understand it. You shouldn't have drafted the kid if that's the offense you were going to run, because that's not who Trey Lance is. That is not at all who Trey Lance is. And I know that I think a lot of people think that's who Trey Lance is. That's not who Trey Lance is. Trey Lance is a quarterback who wants to throw the ball and run secondary. But that's not what he did with them. It was very, very interesting to say the least. All right, Gammon, we're coming to you.
All right.
How's
it going?
Man, I'm doing great. Setup now. Like, what's up, man?
I did. Yeah, just had to come here, come correct. But I wanted to ask you, so one of my all-time favorites growing up as a kid was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I don't know if you were kind of the same way.
Hell yeah.
Did you have a favorite Ninja Turtle?
Michelangelo. Absolutely.
Michelangelo? And I'm
Yes.
glad that you picked that one, because I'm sure a lot of people's were Raphael and Donatello and all that kind of stuff. But we love all four of them, but the everyone's favorite turtle is dead. But when I look at Brock Purdy, he reminds me of the Last Ronin right now, because everybody is down except for him at this moment in time. So
That's facts.
yeah, he is trying to come up with a good nickname for him. But I was just thinking, how wild is it that we might be led by an undrafted running back in Jordan Mason? We have Mr. Irrelevant breaking our huddles.
Mhm.
And oh yeah, we have a journeyman at center that got passed up by everyone else in the league. So we're talking about like how realistic is it? And the first two people who touched the football on our team, last pick in the draft, and somebody else's leftovers that nobody else wanted. That's who we have, and we're trying to say what's realistic. We're going to win the Super Bowl. It's like, we do have to be a little honest about that. But because you gotta ask yourself, what are the odds? And I always say, never tell me the odds, but it's going to be historic either way. My biggest thing is looking at this offensive line and looking at all the quarterbacks from previous years, right? And they're all getting injured. If Brock Purdy gets injured, so now it doesn't matter about Garoppolo. We had Garoppolo, we had Lance. Brock Purdy gets injured. I just know that this fan base was really, really pleading and asking for this front office to build up a better offensive line to protect that capital. And it kind of went ignored. There's two organizations I was really surprised that did that, and that was the Rams and that was the 49ers. And we have seemed to have kind of forgotten that. And because my biggest fear was the way that this offensive line was initially built was that Lance was going to be running for his life. I'm looking at Purdy. He is running for his life. Now, the other thing, too, I want to bring up is you don't need a strong arm in this offense to be productive. Look, guys, we're in the West Coast offense. Now, it's more diverse in its formations with buzzwords like outside zone. But fundamentally, this offense hasn't changed, right? It's a pass game that's always been predicated on timing with short, accurate passes, right? Like that's what you got to do when you're in there. When you're talking about this, it's always built around that 6-yard line. Move the ball, control the tempo, right? Slants, crossing routes in the flat. We stretch horizontal before vertical. Looking at Joe Montana's stats, right? And because the first thing I was kind of looking at was looking at Brock Purdy's stats, because everyone likes stats. Everyone likes numbers. Everyone likes QB win totals, right? But I was looking at Brock Purdy's stats and I was going like, geez, 6 yards per throw. I was looking at Joe Montana's stats and I was looking at how many years Joe Montana had 6 yards per throw. Then I started looking at Steve Young's stats and I was going like, geez, and it's so funny how quickly we forget sometimes just pure basics about what we're doing. We're picking each other apart from different stats, but we're not kind of looking back inward about what's going on. And also, too, I thought it was absolutely amazing how quickly he was getting rid of that football, but he was doing what was supposed to be done. Back then, too, your running backs, your traditional running backs, were your big, bruising Eric Dickerson running backs. We did everything different. We had this slow guy, Jerry Rice, who ran a 4.5, but he was a slant god. Now we have a slant god like Deebo Samuel, but he was a slant god, worked his ass off, blocked, but he would catch these short passes that were basically the equivalent of runs. And other teams were going like, what are you guys doing? Throwing these 3 to 5 yard passes, like these nickel and dime passes. That's what your running back's for. Then we had a guy who did something different in Roger Craig. We had a running back who's actually getting out there, receiving. I think he was like the first thousand kind of guy.
Yeah,
was right there.
Yeah, he was.
So now you look at Christian McCaffrey, and I'm not going to say this guy is Roger Craig, but again, the
pretty
offense,
good comp,
guys,
though. That's a good comp.
Yeah, and so that's the thing. So I see people are going to bash, and people are going to bash me for this, but whatever I say, someone's going to immediately think I'm a Trey Lance lover or Purdy, but I just can't be, call it out for what it is. The truth is, it shouldn't look any different because you're supposed to get the ball out quick. And what I'm seeing from Trey Lance, that the offense had to change because of that ball's not getting out quick. The way that those offensive line movements, formations have to happen, right? You're going to get a lot of guys hemmed up on a block. You're going to, so as far as like penalties and everything else are going to start coming out. It's got to happen, but that was really my big thing. I'm hoping that next off season, they really evaluate the talent on the roster. That everyone's run blocking has gone down tremendously too. You look at the offensive line. Yes, we're running a lot in volume, but that doesn't make it quality. Our yards are down quite a bit, significantly last year, and that also too has to come down to not addressing this offensive line. It's one of those things, like we can talk about Jimmy Garoppolo having a body made of glass, but if we go through 4 quarterbacks this year, somebody's got to start bringing that up. I don't ever remember Lance being told. And here's the other thing too. One of the biggest slights on Brock Purdy is that he's not a big guy, right? Like that's one of the reasons why he was out. So there's a lot.
What though? Can I say this real quick? That surprised the hell out of me. Tua's small. Yeah. When they met at the middle of the field to kind of give love, oh my God. I mean, Purdy's not big at all. Yeah. Man, he was bigger than Tua. That Tua's small.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's just, to me, is just really the big thing. To me, defenders in the backfield, they can be there. So a lot of the times, right, the scheme, the routes, those are going to kind of cross up for this scheme in particular, right, is going to cross up the linebackers. It's going to create that empty space. So you're trying to get it into these zones where they don't really have a lot of time to do anything, and because you beat them to that punch so quickly. Now, if you looked at Tua's average kind of depth as far as like air yards was right around 8, but he had it constructed to where he knew that his running backs, as far as their 10-yard split, they could get to a certain area a yard or two further down the field, right, than somebody like Ayuk or Deebo Samuel. So they're able to. He's able to occupy just slightly a little bit different of a field. But again, we're talking about a yard here, and if we're talking about who would you rather have in the teeth of the opponent's defense, would that rather be Tyreek, Waddle, or would you rather see somebody like Deebo, right, or Kittle, these sort of things? But yeah, I mean, teams got eaten alive. Because again, guys, it's not about the big 20-yard, 25-yard play, right? It's about tempo. That last game that we won, if we beat teams, it's not because we're asking him to throw for 20 yards every single play. It's going to be like, hey, just like that last game, control the clock, keep our defense off the field, and then just run it out, like literally just run it out.
Yeah, I think a traditional West Coast offense fits everything you're saying. I think that it's evolved a little bit with some of these new age cats. I look at it, I think a perfect marriage for what the 49ers want to do kind of really came to a culmination with the Falcons when they made that Super Bowl run. I think they want to take deep shots and run the ball. And what you see Mike McDaniel doing, it's very interesting for a run game coordinator. They're not running the ball effectively at all. In fact, they're abandoning the run quite a bit. But what they are doing is they're taking those deep shots over the middle, those deep digs, those types of things, posts, whatever. And the 49ers are able to run the ball, but their quarterbacks haven't been able to take those deep shots over the middle. Now, you did see that change with Trey Lance. One time in the last 29 starts for Jimmy Garoppolo is he had even 15 attempts in a game past 10 yards. Trey Lance did that in start too, and I think that's what they want to do. I think they wanted to use that play action, turn the back to the defense, take those deep shots, not super deep, but when I say deep, I want to say 15, 20 yards on a regular basis, those big chunks, and run the ball effectively. And, I think that's where things have evolved. However, it can work both ways. And I think the way the offense is constructed right now with both Jimmy and Purdy, I think both of them can execute and win the way that you were talking about. And I think that that's what's nice kind of about where Shanahan's background is and the way that he's been able to evolve and seeing some of his counterparts evolve this offense once they've left him as well, is that I think he can play both styles. What is his preference? I would assume probably closer to what they did in Atlanta, but can he win this way? Yeah, of course. He's definitely proven that. They made it to a Super Bowl playing this way and an NFC championship. So I think you make some great points, Gammon. I gave you 10 minutes, which means I love you. And I got to get to the next couple callers, brother.
Last thing. It's not, I think it's incredible how much our coach, Kyle Shanahan, believed in Brock Purdy because he had that man throwing for gosh, who knows how much. I may not believe in him. We all may not believe in him, but you have to ask yourself, would you have allowed Jimmy to have taken that many throws? And this kid had no reps to anybody else. Thank you. Love you for your time. Appreciate it.
Later, bro. All right. I've got, let's see. Tua has small hands. Actually, I think he has bigger hands than Lance, Brady, and Purdy. I thought his hands measured at around 10 inches. I could be wrong about that. I definitely will take being corrected, but I swear that they're around 10 inches. But at any rate, we're going to go with Zach. Zach, thank you for being patient. We're going to go Zach, Ferris, Dabuda, T, and then Giannis. We got some new callers here. I like this. This is good. What's up, Zach? How are you?
Yo, how's it going, Jesse?
It's going good, man.
That's good. All right, so I have a couple. I just wanted to hear your opinion on something.
Okay.
And going back to the bye, I was like, okay, the Niners have 3 tests on the schedule. They have Miami, Tampa, and then a short week after Tampa at Seattle for Thursday Night Football.
Okay.
Now, going back, we did win the Miami game. Great win. Loved watching Purdy. Purdy played great. Now, going to Tampa, I'm not super worried about Tampa. The only thing I am worried about is being up in the fourth quarter with a lead with Kyle going up against Tom Brady.
It sounds like a pairing that is made for us to lose, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. And to add on to that with Tom Brady, that dude will crawl with all 4 limbs cut off until he wins that football game. He will do whatever it takes to win.
Yeah.
Now, I think strength of roster, the Niners can absolutely eviscerate Tampa Bay, regardless of defense, regardless of Tom Brady's weapons. I just think they're in such front office turmoil that I don't think it's going to matter.
Yeah, I think, what's interesting is when I did the second half of the season breakdown with Sunil here on the channel, I picked the 49ers to win the Dolphins game, and the game I had them losing was the Buccaneers game. But the Buccaneers have just gotten so injured since then that I just can't pick them. I mean, 4 of the 5 offensive linemen are out. I think they have 4 starters out on defense. It's a recipe for a disaster against a team like the 49ers, which is great because we're 49er fans, but
Yeah.
I just don't see it on a short week, traveling from East Coast to West Coast, that many players out. Tom Brady's great. Tom Brady is still great. He's playing at a high level still, in my opinion. I just don't think it's enough. I don't see the 49ers losing this game. If they lose this game, that concerns me for a playoff run because I think Tampa's about as ripe for the picking as they can be.
Of course. And another point with Brock Purdy, I think Brock Purdy is in the best situation, even with Kyle, with all the weapons and with the whole team being behind him. Granted, Trey getting hurt in week 2 and Jimmy, just being injured and ruled out for a long period of time. Purdy's in the best situation for the team because he can play with nothing to lose. Who's got it better than Brock? Third string quarterback coming in. He can do whatever he wants. He can throw 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 2 touchdowns. He can do whatever he wants. But my biggest fear with Brock is not Brock's ability to play for the remainder of the season, not like he's going to get hurt or his ability to produce. It's Kyle's going to get comfortable with his skill set and take back his system and shove it into Brock Purdy's plate in front of him and say, you need to follow X amount of instructions. Ball has to go here. Ball has to go there. Instead of, like we saw in Miami, opening it up, using play action, and taking those 25 to 40-yard shots down the field.
Yeah, I think that is one thing about Purdy is I think he has a pretty good deep ball. Again, I don't think I think his arm is weaker than Jimmy's, but that doesn't mean that you can't throw a deep ball. Every quarterback in the league can throw 50 plus yards. Like that's just like what quarterbacks do in the league. So that a deep ball I don't think is Brock Purdy's issue. And I think that if he's got somebody out running that he's probably we'll see it. We have to see it at the NFL level, but I think it's probably fair to say that he could be more accurate than Jimmy Deep. And if he can hit a couple of those a game or at least attempt a couple of those and get people to respect it, then the arm strength doesn't turn into an issue because it's hard for a defense to key in on you. It's hard for them to kind of clamp things down. With Jimmy, it's like every defense knew, okay, we're going to keep you to a tennis court sized field in the middle.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to do. We know that you're not going to throw past, 12 yards. We know you're not going to throw outside the numbers on a regular basis. So we're going to keep you in this area. If Brock Purdy can hit a couple deep balls and be effective there, his limitations may still be the same where it's like, okay, 12 yards and under, middle of the field, that type of stuff. However, now you're stretching it more vertically. That's where he can really help himself out. So I'm curious to see how that plays out. And, the power throws may not be there. The deep digs may not be there, but you might be able to get a deep post, very similar to what we saw last week. Tua, who also doesn't have the strongest arm, he throws a pretty deep ball, and that was a good one to Tyreek Hill. And I think Purdy can execute on that as well.
100% agree. And last thing for you, going into the playoffs, which granted, even with Brock Purdy, I fully 100% believe this team is going to go into the playoffs, regardless of seeding.
Yeah.
Who is your biggest scare on the NFC side, and who do you do and not want to play in the Super Bowl?
Man. All right.
If it came to that, hypothetical.
NFC side of thing, it's still Philly because they're the one team that I think they've shown that they're susceptible to be ran on, but a lot of that was before they brought in both Linval Joseph and Sue, and it was also when Davis was out. Now that they got all three of those guys to pair with Fletcher Cox, I think that is one team that can limit our run offense, and that is also a team with a mobile quarterback that still gives the 49ers fits. So that's the team I would prefer to avoid. I think it's also possible they can avoid them because I think we're going to see a scenario where Dallas goes to Philly in round 2, and anytime you get a division game, anything is possible. I could see Dallas beating Philly and making our life a lot easier, but Philly's the one team in the NFC I would prefer to avoid. AFC, it was Buffalo. It was 100% Buffalo. But now that Von Miller's out, man, Kansas City would probably be the team, but Kansas City struggles against the Bengals. They cannot figure out the Bengals for whatever reason. Last 3 games, they've lost to them, including the playoffs last year to go to the Super Bowl. The Bengals might make our job easy there too. So there's a possibility where the 49ers, the 3 teams that would probably give them the most fits are the Eagles, the Bills, and the Chiefs, and they might avoid all 3 for different reasons. And so, you never know once you get into the playoffs. Those are the 3 teams that I would have preferred to avoid. And I think there's a possibility they might be able to do that.
Yep, and I 100% agree. And thank you for allowing me on, Jesse. And it's been nice talking to you.
All right, bro. Have a good one.
Yep, you too.
Later. All right, we're going to go to Ferris here in a minute. I think there's a super chat. I want to get to it. Oh no. Are you still back there? Did you come back? No, he said his Wi-Fi discontinued when I was in your chat. Thanks for the great content. Your thought on cap room signing Bosa next year. Yeah, they should have plenty of cap room. And I think that is the one thing that is great about the way that Purdy is played. If he can play anything close to that, I look at it as more of, I still think it's Trey's team, but you've got a viable backup that can play similar to Jimmy. It really kind of makes Jimmy a non-factor. And so you're going to save that money. Signing guys like Bosa, no issue there. They're going to be fine. Cap space wise, they should be no issue at all. So, all right, Ferris, we're coming to you. Hey, Ferris, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. What's on your mind?
I just wanted to speak about the criticism of Trey Lance. I've seen a lot of criticism on Twitter, around Bleacher Report, around that, and I just think I think it's unfair to criticize a QB that's only started around I think 3 games, 4 games, I think,
Yeah,
because he
4 games. Yep.
yeah, and you can go back, what's it called, to the first game he started. You can see that he showed flashes against the Arizona Cardinals. He threw some nice passes in that game, even though he a little struggled versus that defense. The Arizona Cardinals defense was at the time very good, and they were 5-0. And then you go back to the Texans game last year. The 49ers don't make that NFC Championship without Trey Lance playing and winning that game. People seem to forget that game was a must win. If they don't win that game, they don't make the playoffs, obviously, and they don't have that deep run of theirs. So Trey Lance in that game, he showed the flashes you saw on that deep crossing around with Debo on the play action. You saw that potential from Trey Lance. And then I see a lot of people go on that Chicago game when they talk about, oh, Trey Lance wasn't ready. He's not accurate with the ball. That was in a monsoon. It's not really fair. Both QBs didn't really play well. Justin didn't play well. He got lucky on that, what's it called? The bus play when Hufanga really came up, and he got lucky on that play. So I don't
Yep.
really think it's fair to criticize Trey and say, Brock Purdy is better, when we're going to see Brock Purdy play 3.5 quarters, and he's impressed me a little bit, but he hasn't shown me that he's way better than Trey, and that's just my opinions on Trey.
Listen, I'm fully in agreement with you, and it's funny because I think people completely forgot that we saw a snippet of him against the Chiefs, and that didn't look so hot, right? So,
Yeah.
and I get it; it was garbage time. I'm not again. I'm not trying to hold this against Purdy, but when you go and you look at the actual numbers for their first 46 throws, Trey Lance played a lot better. And a lot of people look at Trey Lance, said he played terrible early on. And then, it was just the Texans. But then they give the same leeway to Purdy. They're like, oh, he looks so good. Well, the numbers say he wasn't better than Trey Lance. And then you add in the fact that that's not even including the running. And by the way, it was just the Dolphins. I get the Dolphins they're a better overall team than the Texans, but their defense isn't good. Their pass defense this year is rated worse than the Texans was last year.
That Texans defense did pick off Justin Herbert the week before 3 times too, also.
Well, and that's a big thing because people are like, oh, well, that's a one-off and whatever. But that game needed to be won by the Chargers. They didn't make the playoffs last year, and I think they missed it by a game. If they had won that game, they would have been in. So that was actually a big game for the Chargers. So I don't know. I don't understand the double standards. And then when you point those things out, the answer is always comes back to, well, Trey should play better. He was drafted higher. It's like, well, all right. Well, then we just can't have a conversation because you said he wasn't better. And then once I point out he actually was, it's like, well, he was drafted higher. All right. Well, what are we doing then?
Goalposts. Okay.
Right. Exactly.
I appreciate it, man.
All right, bro. Have a good one.
You too.
V says sign Grant is a quality control. Nice. I wanted to get to this comment. Jason says, wait, we beat the Eagles last year. Eagles lost to the Commanders. The one team we shouldn't look past if they make the playoffs is the Commanders. I agree. I think the Commanders can definitely make a little bit of noise, especially because they're getting Chase back. However, that Eagles team from last year is not even close to the same team this year at all. And I agree. I think the 49ers are better than they were last year. Jalen Hurts is playing out of his gourd right now. He is a completely different quarterback, and that happens in year 3 for these quarterbacks. We've seen it with Tua. We've seen it with him. They went ahead and beefed up that secondary, improved that secondary big time. They added A.J. Brown. They added Davis up the middle through the draft on top of Sue, on top of Linval Joseph. That is not the same team. That is not the same team. And when you talk about division games, yes, they lost to the Commanders. That's a division game. Everything goes out the window in a division. We saw with the 49ers, they lost to Arizona last year twice. They're a better team than Arizona, but styles make matchups, and division games are division games. So I wouldn't look too much into that loss. I mean, that would be like if we're in an Eagles chat and they're like, yeah, we don't have to worry about the 49ers. They lost to the Bears, or they lost to the Broncos. We lost to the Broncos. Like the Broncos. If we play the Broncos right now, we kick the piss out of them. It's the way it worked out. It was Jimmy's first game. It was on the road. Russell Wilson, the whole, things happen. Things happen. So I respect your opinion. I see where you're going with that. I'm not saying we should like completely fear any team, but if there's a team that I want to avoid, man, the team that I want to avoid, I mean, that's whatever. Spy versus Spy says, but it's fair to judge Purdy. Okay, I see how it is. No, definitely not. The only thing that I can do is judge based off of what I know. Like what have we seen thus far, and more importantly, what did I think coming out of college? That's where I'm at, and that's because Trey Lance has only started 4 games and finished 3, and Purdy's only. I mean, this is his first start. Technically, he didn't start last week. I'm going more off of what I know from them in college, because that is a big body of work. And by the way, what I saw from them in limited action in the pros is no different than what I thought of them coming out. Now, they can change the narrative. They can improve. They can get worse. Things can happen. And that's why I think all quarterbacks deserve 3 years before you really, truly make a full judgment on who a player is. But if you're going to sit here and tell me that Brock Purdy is the future and we got to move on from Lance, and Lance is, then I'm calling BS. I'm calling BS. And again, I know you didn't like my comments in last night's show. We went back and forth a little bit in the comment section afterwards, but I want to be clear about this. I like Brock Purdy. I've liked him since December of 2020. I think he has limitations, and I think he's a long-term backup. All those things can be true. I can like a player. I can know their limitations. I can root for a player, but I still think he's a backup quarterback in this league. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you couldn't decipher that, or I didn't make myself clear. Maybe that's it. But man, that's the way I feel about this situation. I'm sorry. That's just the way that I feel about it. All right. Now, this is somebody who comments a lot, but I don't know. Actually, maybe once we have talked. Dabada, let me bring you on. I think we have talked once now that I think about it. But it's been a while since I've done a call-in show, so bear with me. What's up? How you doing?
Hey, what's up, Jesse? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing really good. Ready for a big game against Tom Brady. I wish it was here in Tampa so I could go to it. That would be nice. But other than that, no, I'm doing great, man. We beat the Dolphins. That was the game for me that was like the one game that I really wanted in the second half of the season, and they got it done. So I'm doing great.
Okay, cool. So this is a long-time listener, first-time caller kind of deal.
Okay,
And,
so this is the first time we've actually talked. You comment all the time. I thought for some reason maybe we had talked one other time, but I guess not. Okay.
No. This first time actually calling in and seeing your call-in show. But I got a question for you.
Yeah.
I think it was a couple of days ago on Jack Cameron's show where you said that Brock Purdy was already about 80 or 85% of his capacity already. And I don't really know much about him, to be honest, just from what I've seen and heard this year, and from somebody like you that's, had eyes on him since 2020. Why do you think he's already, near capacity and he can't get much better? What is it about him that you think that he's already kind of tapped out?
Well, I think, first of all, I think 15%, there's a lot of refining that you can do with that 15%. There's a lot of efficiency things. I'll tell you what I think he needs to clean up, and these are things he certainly can clean up by just playing more. He was not the best decision maker in college. He had a little bit of that Jimmy Jean, that gunslinger mindset. Even though he's got more of a game manager skill set, he'll throw one up. And so decision making is an area he has to refine, and just knowing when to take those chances and not take those chances. But the reason that I say that is because just physically, you can only grow so much within your physical limitations. And it doesn't mean he can't be good. Like Drew Brees was a great quarterback. He had physical limitations. It's not a knock to say somebody has physical limitations, but Brock Purdy being a 4-year starter at a at a larger college, you're naturally going to be closer to whatever your peak is, just naturally. And when you have physical limitations, there's only so much that you can grow. Now, there are some mental things that he can make improvements on, and that's where that 15% comes in. And if he hits that 15% and can reach that full potential, he might be a lower tier starter in this league. He might not just be a backup for his career. He could be a 20 to 25 tier like starter in this league. That's also a possibility. But then when I look at Trey Lance, it's like, okay, we know that he has to grow. There's potential there. We know that he's fast. We know he has a big arm. We know he's smart. We know he works hard. We know all those things. A lot of similarities to Purdy as far as being humble and wanting to be great and being a good leader. They have a lot of the same qualities when it comes to that, but he's nowhere near that potential. And so if they're even at all close right now, and Brock Purdy has 15 more percent, in my opinion, to tap into, and Trey Lance has 40%, then you go with the guy with the potential. You just have to, especially if they're close early. So that was my thought about it. Maybe I'll get proved wrong. For watching Purdy for multiple years, I feel like I have a really good pulse on who he is, and we'll see.
So do you think Trey Lance has more percentage to get better because he's played less college games? Or
yeah, he's played less football. So A, he's played less football, and B, he doesn't have those physical limitations, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's not 6 foot tall with a weaker arm. Quick. I mean, Brock Purdy's quick, but he's still a 4'8" guy. Trey Lance isn't as fast as some people thought, but at worst, he's a 4'6" guy. So he's more mobile. He's faster. He's got a bigger arm, and he hasn't played as much. I think those things come into play.
Okay, gotcha. And then one more thing, because I know some people have been saying his arm is not as strong as Jimmy G's.
Mm-hmm.
I know Jack thinks it is. I think it is just watching the game on Sunday. Especially that one throw that he did to Kittle in the middle of the field when he got whacked, that looked like a bullet. And I don't know if you remember, but when he threw that touchdown pass to McCaffrey,
great throw.
Before
Two
McCaffrey even turned around, the ball was already about to hit him in the face. Mm-hmm. And it kind of looked like McCaffrey had to react really quick just to catch that ball. So even if though he doesn't have that strong of an arm, I think he kind of has that anticipation factor where he can make up for it by getting the ball where it needs to go and having already there in that spot for them or throwing them open at least. So
yeah, let's talk about some of the things that he does well, right? Because again, I say that I like Brock Purdy, and then I have to keep telling you what his limitations are. The things that I like about Purdy certainly showed up in that game as well. Great anticipation, very quick release, great footwork. He's refined in a lot of those areas. And so when he's making these throws, 12 yards and under directly over the middle of the field, he's got the arm strength for that. Like those are throws that he's going to be able to routinely make because he does have good zip on the ball in that area, and he anticipates it, and he's got a quick release, to your point. And so I think those are throws that you're going to see him routinely make. And it's funny because you'll see Jimmy make some of those throws too, where it's like, damn, you got leveled. You were fading away and you were able to just hit a dart over the middle of the field. Like, why can't you power throw 15 yards downfield outside the numbers? Like, it looks like you should be able to. Yeah. And I think him and Jimmy are very similar in that way, that they're willing to take a shot and deliver a strike over the middle of the field. And they both can do that. Absolutely.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I was going to ask you who you thought you had a bigger arm, but you already answered that a little bit ago. But
yeah, and I think it's close. Yeah, I want to be clear. I think it's close. I don't think that there's like a major gap here. It's not like Jimmy's a power thrower, but I think some of that off-platform stuff, people rag on Jimmy's arm, and again, I don't think it's the strongest by any means, but he can make some of those off-platform like flip throws outside the numbers, under 10 yards. Like, he can make those pretty routine. I haven't seen a lot of that, from Brock Purdy when that comes in. And a guy that I really encourage you to go look at was drafted in the first round by the Minnesota Vikings. The hell is his name?
Ponder.
Christian Ponder. I promise. Anybody,
Yeah.
please go watch a 5-minute highlight of Purdy in college. Go watch a highlight of Christian Ponder. They are the same player from a skill set perspective. People rag on Christian Ponder because he was a bust, but he was drafted in the first round. There was a lot of expectations for Christian Ponder. Christian Ponder was a 7th round pick. He might still be in the league because that expectation wouldn't be there. They play very similar brand of football, and they have to win the same ways. They're both athletic. They're both sneaky. They both can make, good throws on the run. They both can anticipate over the middle. Very, very similar players.
Yeah, but to be honest with you, Ponder's kind of boring, so I kind of don't like that comp. No offense.
That's fair. That's fair.
I like Grant's comp to what's his name? The quarterback that he just mentioned from Arizona that used to play for Texas, Colt McCoy. He's got a little bit more. He's got a bit more grit and a little bit more oomph to him. But yeah, I'll go check that out. But thank you for taking my call, Jesse. Appreciate you.
It was a great call. Call in anytime, man.
All right, thank you, sir. Have a good night.
All right, later. All right, Jesse, clarify the on-field limitations that you see with Purdy right now. And again, I think one of them can get better. The other one is never going to improve. Your arm strength is your arm strength. Power throws is a limitation for him. I'm talking like 25 yards over the middle of the field in a tight window. I'm talking, 12 to 15 yards outside the numbers from the far hash. In fact, two throws that this showed up on Sunday. One was the Deebo Samuel pass over the middle. That was about 25, 30 yards over the middle. Deebo Samuel's coming on a deep crosser, essentially. And that thing just floated like a butterfly. Now, should have been pass interference. It wasn't. They ended up getting a makeup call, in my opinion, the play later. And then the other one was to Brandon Ayuk. When he sailed it over Brandon Ayuk's head, that was a power throw. That was a throw where he should have put it on the money out in front of him. And he had to try to feather it in there because he just doesn't have the arm to make that throw. So those are the times that you're going to see it. But again, you can work around those limitations. You can win games with those limitations. For him, that's always going to be a physical limitation that he has. Now, on the mental side of things, didn't really show up so much on Sunday, and maybe it won't. Maybe he's been able to correct this very quickly with his time in the league. But Brock Purdy is a gunslinger, and his quarterback coach was on with Crocker on Tuesday. He admitted that much. He admitted that he's a gunslinger a little bit. And even Shanahan in today's presser talked about that. He's like, yeah, what I like about him is that he'll try to make the big play. And sometimes you got to rein that in a little bit because the big play could be for the other team. And that's just the way he is, and for me, I think when you have arm limitations like that, like Jimmy Garoppolo does, I hate it when you're also a poor decision maker. That was my biggest gripe with Jimmy. It was never his physical limitations. It's that he didn't realize sometimes his physical limitations, and he was a bonehead on top of it. I hated that. And I see a lot of that in Brock Purdy as well. Brock Purdy's smart. Brock Purdy knows where he wants to go with the football, but every once in a while, he thinks he's something that he's not, and he'll make a very costly mistake at the strangest time. And you're like, dude, what the F? Like, what was that? Why? Well, there was no reason for that. You're up, you're driving, take your points. Why'd you just throw it straight up in the air to a defender? Like, what was the point of that? So those are things that I've seen show up pretty routinely on film for him in college. And hearing Shanahan talk about it a little bit, hearing his own quarterback coach talk about it a little bit all this week tells me that that's probably still a thing a little bit right now, and probably will be for maybe even a couple years. He can work through it. I'm not saying he can't work through it, but right now those would be my concerns with Brock Purdy. All right, we're gonna go to Giannis and then Greg T. What's up, Giannis? How are you?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, so I have a few thoughts for you, Jesse, and I think you'll like some of them because I have a really intriguing conversation for you. So the first one was you brought up Jalen Hurts. You know that Jalen Hurts, have you seen the way that year after year he has improved and improved as a passer because he's gotten the
Ton.
reps. Look at Jalen Hurts last season. Did you watch them in their game we played against them? I mean, and even in the playoff game against Tampa, you're like, this guy is horrific, like as a passer. He was a good runner, but not a passer. So here's what I want to tie it to Trey Lance. If you look at and this is why, for me, and maybe this is just me, I don't believe Trey Lance was the pick that Mr. Shanahan wanted. That's just my personal opinion. And I'll lay out to you the reasons why.
Okay.
Number one, you know how they say a leopard doesn't change its stripes?
Yes.
When you look at all the quarterbacks that his dad picked, whether it's Brian Greasy, whether it's Plummer, whether it's their love for Kirk Cousins, when the owner is the one that wanted RG3 drafted, I genuinely think that Trey Lance pick came from above, whether it's Adam Peters or it's Mr. Jed York. I don't believe it came from the Shanahans. And everything that I have seen since Trey Lance has been drafted has pointed me to that direction. Number one, bringing back Jimmy G and starting him that year when you could have started Trey Lance. It could have been a year because you said you have this backing from the owner. So it doesn't matter what the record is, as long as what mattered would have been Trey Lance's development. So Trey Lance could have been a running quarterback that season, just like Jalen Hurts was last season, and he could have worked with him on his throwing. But that didn't happen. And then this season, again, because the whole year they didn't bring back Jimmy G. Why did they bring him back after training camp? Because to me, I don't think they were buying into what they saw from Trey Lance in training camp. Just from what I see, I'm just reading the tea leaves. I'm not there. So what I see is I just wish they would have picked the person they wanted to pick and stuck with it. Because as a fan, I'm not tied to Trey Lance. I'm not tied to anyone. I'm a 49ers fan. I'm going to back whoever is the quarterback or whoever is on the team. So I just wish they would have done that and we wouldn't had all this back and forth, because I just feel like if that was the plan, then Trey Lance would have started last season. I don't know. That's the first thing that I have for you. I don't know what your thoughts are about that.
Yeah, I think both can actually be true here. I do think that Trey Lance was his pick. I don't think, because he had too much on the line. So for me, I feel like it was his pick. However, he did something really interesting, and I kept talking about this. To me, what he did was he literally went in and said, "Hey, I'm going to bet the house here. I'm betting the house on this player. I'm giving up everything I have, all the assets I have. We're going to bet the house on this player." However, he loved his big screen TV so much that he was unwilling to throw that into the bet. And that was not starting Trey Lance right away. So you're going to go all in. You're going to trade all these picks. But when it comes to developing him the proper way, you're going to say, no. I'll bet my $400,000 house, but that big screen, I'm keeping. It was a weird thing about it. But when you look at what the Patriots did, they got rid of the problem before it became a problem. They gave it to Mac Jones. They got rid of Cam Newton. I think that would have been the right thing to do. And now here we are. We're going to be going into year 3, and we still have no idea who Trey Lance is. No idea. So I agree with you there. I think they messed up by not starting him year 1. To me, that's not an indication, though, that they didn't want, or that he didn't want Trey Lance. That's just me personally.
You know what? Another thing that leads me to that is I just saw, I can send you, I'm just going to tweet at you right now. I saw a podcast today. Sorry, not podcast. I saw it on YouTube. Sage Rosenfels on a program with, I don't know that guy's name, but you can see it. I just tweeted at you. You know what he said? He said Mike Shanahan loved Brock Purdy. When I was listening to that, he said Mike Shanahan talked to me and he was telling me, how much he loves Brock Purdy. When I heard that immediately, I'm just like, from what I know, you know that Mike Shanahan literally watches the 49ers practices from his home in Denver. Do you know that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course.
So it's like this guy has a major say. So I just have a hard time believing that the guy who loves somebody like that much would then be okay with his son drafting someone completely different. It's just like, maybe you're right. By the way, none of us really like know like for sure, but it's just like I also felt like um when we saw what happened immediately after the draft, when you saw Jed York saying, "Oh, he can sit on the bench for 2 years" or something like that. Do you remember what he said? A year or 2 years, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of like weird because Shanahan said, "I want a starting quarterback." See, this is where like I'm so confused as a fan. When the coach says, we want a new starting quarterback," and then the owner comes after the draft and says, "Oh, Jimmy can start for the next few years." Are we not trying to replace Jimmy? Do you understand how we get confused?
I totally understand what you're saying. You know what I think really happened here?
Yeah.
So I think out of the rookies, Trey Lance was his preference. However, I don't think a rookie was his preference. I think he wanted a veteran. I still fully believe this, that if Deshaun Watson had not gone through what he went through,
Yeah.
he did it to himself. So I don't
Yeah,
want to
of
say
course,
like he's a
of course,
victim
yeah.
here, but
Yeah.
had that situation not happened, I think Deshaun Watson, a veteran quarterback, would have been on the 49ers.
I
I think
100%
that's the
agree
move
with
he
you.
wanted to make.
I agree with you. I 100% agree with you.
So
Because the way he runs that offense, when you saw with the Bill, what's his name again? O'Brien, right?
Mhm.
It was kind of similar to the format. A lot of boots, a lot of play action. I fully agree with you, and I also feel like, do you think they could have gone harder after Stafford? Do you think they were outbid?
Yeah, I think they were outbid on that. Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, that was it. About the team, because I just want to discuss the team before I go. Sorry for keeping you on so long.
You're good. You're good. I got one more. I got Greg after this. So
Yeah.
Greg, thank you for being patient.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about watching that game, Jesse. I noticed McCaffrey might be our best route runner. I'm not even joking. I rewatched the game, and I'm like, he's beating these people so easily. Whether it's a linebacker, whether it's a safety, like he literally, there was a route, Jesse. I don't know if you saw it. He won, but he was held. I think that would have been a touchdown because Brock was looking at him. Did you see that play?
I did. I absolutely saw that play, and you're right. I think Christian McCaffrey's a hell of a route runner. A hell of a route runner.
Yeah, so that was the thing that I really liked. To me, after Trey Lance went down, this season for me was a bonus. I just wanted to make the playoffs. If we just make the playoffs, I'm just riding it through. Like I really don't have any expectations, and I'm just gonna see how things go. And hopefully, we win a playoff game. If it doesn't happen, all good. But I just want to see consistent ball, and I honestly think that this Purdy will be more consistent than Jimmy. And watch out with the stats from David Lombardi and those guys when Brock Purdy plays just like Jimmy. Watch out for that. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. I'm all for that for sure. You have a good one, Giannis. Great call.
You too. Goodbye.
All right, later. All right. Matthew says, based off of one game. Okay, dude. I assume that you're talking about me with my thoughts on Purdy. And I feel like I have to do this because if I don't, then you're not going to believe me. So let me do this real quick. Oops. Hold on a second. Hold on. A window. Boom. Let's see if you guys can see that. All right. Okay. So this is a tweet that I shared in September 4th, 2021. It said, Brock Purdy is a kid that I liked as a second or third rounder last year. He stayed in college. Really, this is me saying his name so people don't forget when he explodes on the draft scene. I liked him early. And then I shared a text message that I had to a personal friend of mine on 12/21/2020 where I said, Brock Purdy, Iowa State is another QB that I like. Extremely quick release, great footwork and mobile. He's a third round kid, but I think he could be great. So there you go. Been on Brock Purdy for a while, and I like Brock Purdy. So this isn't me basing anything off of one game. I know who he is. I think he can be a good player. And I love that he's on the 49ers. But anything that I talk about Brock Purdy is not based off of one game. It's not based off of his time with the 49ers. It's not based off of what I'm hearing from other people. This is a 2 years, because I think we're in December. This is a 2-year thing with Brock Purdy. I like Brock Purdy. I've been on the Brock Purdy train for a while. So anyways, now you know there's the proof. It's not me just making things up. All right, Greg, coming to you.
Hey.
Thanks for being patient, man. I appreciate you.
No problem. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. You were kind of in and out of the studio there, so you were having.
Yeah,
I was having difficulties or
mic issues. I got a new microphone and I was having mic issues, so sorry about that.
You're good. You're good.
Okay, so I got a few questions for you. So, RG3, do you think Coach learned anything from that experience for Lance? Is that I think this is why he's being super cautious with Lance. Because of RG3. He rushed RG3 back, got him hurt, ruined his career. What do you think?
Man, I think that's a possibility. The one thing is that you've got to be able to learn from your mistakes. I just think that this is a weird situation to do that in. If and only if Trey Lance is cleared. I don't want to rush Trey Lance back at all. That's the last thing that I want to do. I think he's the future of this team, and you don't want to ruin that. However, the difference between him and RG3 is twofold. One, he brought RG3 back super quick. Like, we're talking immediately. And that was an ACL injury. This is a bone break. Once a bone is healed, it's healed. And then it's like, okay, you got to get the strength back. You got to get the mobility back. Well, the bone's been healed now for a while. About 8 weeks for a bone to heal. Bone has been healed. Now it's about, okay, I got to get the mobility in. I got to get the, the balance, the strength, all that back into it. And that's why, they say it's about a 12 to 14 week injury. So for me, I think that there is a possibility that he could play. And I think that not only play, but he would be fully healthy, fully ready to go in football shape, everything as ready as he can be for not actually taking a snap. Now, I'm not saying you throw him in right away. That's not at all what I'm saying. But it is weird to me that he's so like gung-ho on holding him out. And maybe there's something there that the doctors really are seeing. They're saying, hey, he's not healthy. I don't know, But if it's just like, hey, I had the RG3 thing happen to me, and so even if he's ready, I'm not going to play him. I don't think that's necessarily learning from a lesson. I think that's just being afraid.
See, I'm not saying that he's afraid. I'm saying if he did it again, let's just say he brought Trey back, he got hurt. No, there's no coach or no owner would trust you again with their prized quarterback. And so I just wonder if it's one of those job safety type deals where he's trying to make sure that I don't screw this up, because like you said earlier, that's his guy. He picked that guy. If he doesn't succeed, it makes coach look bad. So I think he's doing it just to be super careful to make sure when Lance is ready to go, he's ready to go. And so that's why I don't think we'll see him again this year. Personally, I don't think he'll bring him back.
And by the way, that's totally fair. To me, the reason I use the word scared, and it wasn't towards what you were saying, but more so if he's given the clearance, given the full go, and Trey Lance is like, hey, I want to play, and he says, nah, we're going to hold you out. That, to me, that's playing scared. That's where the word scared comes in.
I agree. Okay. So next question for you is, what is the difference to you between Mullins and Purdy? Because a lot of people are comparing them all over the place. I actually can, if I squint really hard, I can kind of see the similarities, but I don't think they're that close. It looks like Purdy's is a way more careful in his preparation than Mullins was. But that's just my opinion. I wanted to see what you thought.
I think the two similarities they have is probably in preparation and in their stature. That's where the similarities are, and I think that's where the similarities probably end. I talked about physical differences and physical upside between Purdy and Lance and how that's a big difference. Mm-hmm. That is also the same between Purdy and Mullins. Purdy is quick. He can move. He's mobile. That's something that Mullins is not. And so when you're limited in arm strength like Mullins was and like Purdy is, you can negate some of that by getting on the move and making things easier for yourself. And you can protect yourself a lot better. And so you're not forced to throw into tight windows all the time if you can constantly be on the move. And so I think that's where the major one up is for Brock Purdy. There's just things that he can do physically that Nick Mullins will never be able to do. And I think mentally, a lot of people talk about Mullins and how smart he is and his preparation. You can say the same thing about Purdy. And that is amazing because he's got the mental and he's got the edge up on the physical. And so, yeah, maybe you can call him Mobile Mullins. Maybe that fits.
Let's not call him Mobile Mullins. Let's just leave that alone. But so what's your expectation for him this week? Do you have a stat line? Like he's going to have 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception like last week? Or do you think it's going to be a lot less?
Man, you know what? I don't, for me, like a stat line expectation, that's always tough because you don't know game plans and you don't, the defense has changed and those types of things. I just want to see growth. I want to see growth. So maybe some of the throws that he missed this week, be cool if he was able to, maybe make 1 or 2 of those. And I also want to see growth in Kyle Shanahan. I want to see how he actually, now that he has a week to prepare with him at quarterback, he said going from Jimmy to Brock isn't that big of a difference, but I think there are some differences. I think there are things, again, that Brock can do that Jimmy can't and vice versa. And so I'm curious to see what the game plan is with Brock Purdy having a full week. And so I want to see, my expectations are more on Shanahan and then just seeing slight micro improvements from Brock Purdy. That's all I can ask for.
Okay. All right. And one more question for you. Well, I want 2, but I'll ask one. Do you think our defense is going to keep the GOAT less than 21 points this week?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And also, my last question is: I notice I watch you a lot, and I notice that you sport a lot of hats. So my question is: when are you going to start bringing out some merch for us people? You should make some. You should make some for us, man.
Yeah. Listen, you know what? I delved into the merch thing pretty early. I had a couple of shirts that I came out with, but I didn't really push it hard, and it was probably a little too early. I mean, I think it's still probably too early. I think the sweet spot is around like 10,000 subs, probably like consistent 3,000 views is probably where you want to be for a merch thing. So, but merch is also tough from a standpoint that's like, I don't know, like I definitely feel like we got a great community here, but I don't expect anybody to rock anything that says Last Second Sports, like unless it's just super dope. And so I'd have to really spend time on making something cool like that. And then when it comes to like using the likeness of a player or a team, you just can't do those things. And so you have to be really careful in how you make merch and put a lot of time and effort and focus into that. And so I think one day it'll happen. But right now, like, I just want to focus on growing the channel. And I appreciate your support. You're the first one I'm hitting up. As soon as I got it, you're the first one that I'm hitting up and saying, hey, you got a discount, be the first one to buy. But I want to make sure that if I do it and it's Last Second Sports branded, that it's done right for sure.
Well, let me ask you this then. Then start working on those designs now. So when you're ready, you can just take off, man.
There we go. I good call on your part. Thank you, Greg. That was a great call, man. It was worth the wait for sure.
Talk to you later.
All right, later. There was ligament damage as well. Yeah. So BMAC, just to kind of explain to you the way that I understood the ligament damage is it was similar to a high ankle sprain. And so high ankle sprains, we know, I mean, they can linger for sure, but within 12 weeks, a high ankle sprain is usually going to be recovered. And so that's where the ligament damage was. It was similar to that. And Greg brings up a good point. He says at the end of the day, it's not going to be Kyle's call. It's the trainer that says he's ready to go for sure, or full go. I agree with that, Greg. I 100% am on board with that. However, even if they say he's a full go, it is still Kyle's call from that point on. Like, yes, they have to say he's ready before Kyle can say, yes, you're good to go. But are we positive that he would say yes? Or is it like the last caller said, and he is a little bit worried about the RG3 thing and how that might be perceived, and maybe it's not worth it, and we'll just continue to let him rest and develop and what, I don't know. And I'm not saying that he would make that decision, but as much as it is their call, that is the initial step. But before he sees the field, that's Kyle's call. And so once he gets the, yep, you're good from the doctors, he still has a decision to make. And I'm curious to see what his decision would be. I really don't know what his decision would be in that scenario. Little Lord Stewie says, love what you did. Love what you did. You expect such drastic turn on this team. Down to our third string quarterback. It's like soon as we get to the playoffs, it goes to hell. And next season after we lost to the Rams and the Chiefs. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. Like the expectations are, they've got to change once you get to a third string quarterback. You have to have a change. Again, I'm not the biggest Jimmy guy. I think that's pretty clear, but I'm also respectful on who he is. I'm not going to say that the last pick in the draft, his rookie year, is better than Jimmy Garoppolo. And so for me, like if my expectation of this team was they couldn't win a Super Bowl with Jimmy, then I'm not going to throw that onto Brock Purdy and say, hey, he should be able to win a Super Bowl. That would be completely unfair. And I also think it would be, if I say he's better than Jimmy, I think that's being disingenuous. I think that's being unfair, because one thing I've always said about Jimmy is he is a quarterback anywhere from 17 to 22 in this league. He's a starting level quarterback. And I can't put somebody who's a 7th round pick his rookie year ahead of them. I just can't do it. That wouldn't be fair. Ryan says, better hat game, Jesse or Kyle? I think I have more variety, but to be fair, hold on. I think I have more variety for sure. I've got about 25 hats or so. However, I've got a hat of his, which means I'm low-key biting his style. So just based off of that, you have to give it to Kyle. If somebody else bites somebody else's style, it's over. It's a wrap. So I got more variety, but I bit his style, man. He wins. He wins. And Kyle does have some cool hats, man. No doubt about it. All right, y'all. Listen, it's been fun. I'm glad we were able to do a call-in show. I think this week's going to be a lot of fun. Cannot wait till Sunday. Unless we have some breaking news, I won't be live on this channel until the post-game show. I will be live tomorrow on Chris Polo's channel. Thank you to everybody that called in. Thank you for everybody in the chat, everybody that shows love and support. Even if you disagree with me, I'm cool with you disagreeing with me, but you still rock with me, and I appreciate that. From the bottom of my heart, appreciate all of you. Have a blessed night, and we'll talk soon. Peace.